Another Tuesday, another Dev Diary. Today we'll be looking at the Chinese Soviet Republic. If you're interested in the Dev Diary, I recommend you give it a read. I'll leave a link to it down below. And while we're down there, you can also check out my link for the DLC itself. If you're interested in picking it up, it takes you to the Paradox store where you can buy a Steam key. Same price as Steam, same sales. Only difference is I get 12% of the proceeds to buy more of those things. Anyway, here is the Dev Diary. Another Tuesday, another Dev Diary. Today we will be taking a look at Communist China, now known as the Chinese Soviet Republic. So let's dive right in. There we go. Beautiful work once again. This is another pretty thick one, so be prepared. So first off, starting situation is not what we know and love. Gone are the luscious locks of Mao Zedong, replaced with Zhang Wentian. I have no knowledge of this era of communist China or any China knowledge, so whether or not this is correct, can't tell you. But it does say there is now an internal balance of power between a committee and Mao, who has de facto leadership of the party, and Zhang Wentian here is the general secretary. And of course, this would not be Paradox if every update to a nation did not come with massive nerfs to that nation. So we have a defunct state bank. That's not great. The Central Committee seems shit. Agrarian Society, love it. And the Chinese Red Army. I would rather not have the Chinese Red Army. Oh boy. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to follow the same pattern. They make the country worse and then use the focus tree to build it back up into something beautiful. Not a fan, but probably more accurate of just what kind of state communist China was in at this time. Also, map changes. This is what we remember. This is what we know. Yeah, this is what we're getting. I was looking, where'd Mao go? Looks like Mao is somewhere over there now. He's got less land and there's more variety of stuff out there. Also, why are there 3 crowns on Okinawa? Okay, it's a pretty impactful change. Love to see that. Love to see that. I don't know how I feel about Blue China though. So they also made some changes to the terrain. This is what the game is now, and this is what it's going to be. So mountains, deserts. Well, okay then. Well, you don't even start with the Yan'an base area. Oh, and the areas you do have aren't even fully under your control. There is still the Yulin Garrison, the 86th and 84th divisions under yada 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 have managed yada yada. So there is still nationalist presence in these provinces that you nominally control, but not really. And this is what we're always here for, the Chinese Soviet Republic, a focus tree. It looks thick, spicy. Wish I could get a couple more pixels on this bad boy. Oh, there's a lot of dev art in there still, but this is definitely way bigger than we have now, and bigger means more options, I think, and I like it. Just hope it's not all 70 days. So let's start off with an industry branch. Looking at that, it's fairly straightforward. A couple of choices to be made. Don't really have enough pixels to really tell. Let's see what they talk about. So the industrial situation in communist-controlled northern China is not great. You have 1 mill and 1 sieve. We can make guns, that's all we need. You have the chance not only to recover, but to quickly industrialize. How the hell are you gonna do that? So that is a lot of factories suddenly in 1945 while still at war with Japan. Okay. Probably make different changes with my industry, but you do you, Paradox. You do you. Anyway, economic planning. When it comes to central economic planning, so risk reward and giving you choices in how risky you want to play it. So they're going to give you a 5-year plan versus shorter market plans. Okay, so the way I'm reading this is one has big payoff, but might be difficult to meet the targets laid out. So they're either going to give you a deadline to meet. You need to have 62 civs and 72.5, why 0.5 military factories to make the 5-year plan, in this case over 5 years, work. Or you go for a shorter plan and with a reduced amount of requirements, but the benefit is also slightly less. I'm afraid these are just going to lead to an illusion of choice instead of an actual choice. Somebody's going to math it out, and that will be the simply the best way to do it. What else do we have here? Rural surveys. If the player joins the Second United Front, the player can become surrounded by allies and temporarily locked down from expansion. Yes, that could happen. Unless you kill everyone first. But we don't know if that's an option yet. Okay, so to solve that problem, you've added the focused rural surveys, giving you the build slots. So it gives you a decision that you can take 5 times, so you can get 5 additional build slots because you run out of build slots because you're so tiny, and because you're in a big ass faction, you can't really expand your territory, so you're gonna get your industry locked unless they give you options to increase the amount of slots you have. I mean, at least they thought about it. I'd rather have the factories though than just the build slots, but yeah, okay, they thought about it. It's gonna cost you PP, so that's like 30 PP. Are you gonna use it for anything else? Do you have immediate urgent needs other than the build slots? And if you're gonna win the war within like 3 years, is this worth it? We'll have to see. We don't know enough yet. I'm feeling very skeptical. Maybe I shouldn't be. I should be more open to this, maybe. I don't know. I also give you the choice to develop the rural areas or focus on urbanization. So another choice to be made. Rural seems to be boosting states with supplies and manpower, and urbanization just gives you a civ, construction speed. And of course we start out as an agrarian society, which can be modified. So agrarian reforms or go towards urbanization. Urban society is what you can get. Look at that. Yes, 2.5% reduced output, but it is better than the agrarian outcome in every possible way. I don't see a benefit to sticking with agrarian at all. So it's not locked to going urbanization. This is simply the progress you make from agrarian society towards an urban society. Yeah, you're gonna need that. You're gonna need that because agrarian society is pretty terrible. Like overall pretty terrible. And of course there is a military, and I am very pleased to see we still have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mao Zedong, and his glorious hair, but now he has friends. I think there's even a waifu down there, Li Zhen, so there are a lot of new generals, new options to pick from. Don't know if you start with all of them available or you can find them somehow, but that is a lot of available people. Love it. Holy shit, these will be available in 36? Oh, not necessarily everyone, but you will get the most important ones. Okay, wait, no. No. Here's the list of all the Okay, so this is just the starting generals for Communist China. I'm never gonna have to hire a general again. Let's see, there's also tied into the effects of the Long March, and they want to tie it into the generals who participated in it. So those who are actual survivors of the Long March, who have that red icon there, have a bonus reduced division attrition and reduced non-combat out-of-supply penalties. That's pretty cool. All right, starting military situation. There is an army, and looking at the state of those yellow bars, they're going to be sharing guns a lot because I don't think there's a rifle for every man. The early focus is to rebuild and rearm the Red Army to become sufficiently strong to guarantee the safety of the Chinese Communist cause. Well, good luck with that. So that is the military branch here. I don't know what all of these do, but I do love the icons. Prepare for the third phase. Me loves me some tonks. Anyway, that Chinese Red Army? Yeah. So once you've built up, you will have the chance to form the People's Liberation Army and all of its different branches. Okay. Actually, it's most. You're not getting a Space Force? Oh, man. Anyway, so we reformed the Chinese Red Army into the People's Liberation Army Ground Force, Air Force, and Navy. So the military branch after that initial short bit branches out to Ground Forces, Air Forces, and Navy. There seems to be a whole lot of content there, so I am curious what that's going to be. Now, realistically, I don't know where they're gonna find the content for Navy and Air Force, because that was all Soviet import until late 90s? So the Army, the main choice will be, what parts are you going to go for? You're gonna go small and professional, or just a lot of them? One with the people, it gives you a pretty substantial infantry attack and recruitable pop, while on the other hand, best of the best. A lot less recruitable population, but higher recovery rate and more max planning. Depends on what it leads into. Utilize the Knight gives you 10% Knight attack, while the other gives you 5% more division orc. So these numbers don't actually make that much sense, because this makes the raw number side, which is meant to be worse, but just a lot of them, have actually much better offensive stats than the disciplined, drilled core of a professional army that you're going for on the right side. Yes, it has more max planning. Not that massive in the grand scheme of things compared to 5% infantry attack straight up. Then again, you don't really want to be attacking with infantry, as this version of China, infantry is all you got. Plus 10% Knight attack, that is like 10% additional attack half the time. That is a lot bigger than just 5 additional organization. So going off these numbers, I would not go best of the best. I would go one with the people, I think. I think it's the better stats. They want the communist player to be capable of catching up in armor, because China have fuck all. Like, they had nothing. So, how are we going to catch up? Okay, we're going to have to buddy up with the Soviet Union, and we're going to have to ask them for armored vehicles, as well as preparing for domestic arms production. And then somehow, magically, the Chinese Red Army gets 5% additional armor attack. Anyway, well, you could just ask for T-34s, and Stalin will provide, apparently. And a naval game. So, well, you start off landlocked, so this is not going to be a priority for you until you've somehow acquired a coast. It's probably going to be the basics. Get yourself some dockyards, get yourself some research bonuses, and figure out, do I want to go capital ships or light ship spam? Yeah, like 4 dockyards for a 70-day focus is not bad, honestly. It's a way to catch up, but you got a lot of catching up to do. It's going to depend on what industry you end up having, because right now, if you play as any of the Chinese and you manage to unify China, you got a lot of industry to work with, and you can catch up in the naval race, but it's always going to be a longer game than just power-dropping Japan, for instance. So, yeah. Like they say here, they recognize it. The early People's Liberation Army Navy consists of a lot of Soviet-era ships purchased in the 50s. So everything they have is basically bought from the Soviets. And this looks like it reflects that. You're going to have to do a lot of ass-kissing with the Soviets to get your hands on their designs and then make homegrown versions of it. Of course, after that, you can do whatever you want, but this is the primary way of getting ships, and I do like that it starts a lot of them off in a production line. Depending on how far along those production lines are, that can speed up production quite a bit. Airplanes, yeah, Communist China had exactly 0 airplanes, so this is all fantasy just to allow you to catch up and do your own thing. Otherwise, it would cripple you. It would cripple you, or you'd be stuck with a bunch of generic designs, and people would complain about the generic designs. So I don't mind this. Again, I might sound very complainy. I feel a little skeptical towards this DLC in general, because the last one wasn't that good. But, you know, this makes sense. This makes sense. They want to give you that option, and they want to add some flavor to it. So they're trying to find some plausibility, even where this was very much not a reality. So it's going to focus on research bonuses to establish your production to actually build some planes, and it also gives you some focus to give you a radar and AA to help supplement your lack of an Air Force. Makes sense. Makes sense. You fortunately get some chiefs of the Air Force. At least you're not left to your own devices. That's nice. There are a couple of people here, and the bonuses from this are not terrible, actually. Not terrible at all. So it can build up your People's Liberation Army Air Force quite significantly. Hopefully, After all of those are done, that gives you a pretty hefty, actually that does give you a pretty hefty boost. If you've actually worked your way all through the military tree, those are significant numbers. And some beautiful MIOs. Anyway, some of them are going to be available to everyone. Others are Soviet China exclusive. And now a couple of MIOs in between. These seem to be Soviet in nature and, dockyards. Beautiful dockyards. And politics. Now this is where we're going to have to do a real deep dive. I'm just speaking for me here. I don't like the balance of power. Don't like it. I don't like that they've pulled it back out from whatever hole it was dying in, but here we are. It's back, and this is going to be a struggle between Mao and, I guess, the Central Committee. Mao very much eventually won that struggle and purged the hell out of everyone who stood against him and who stood with him. But it does not have to be that way, so you can balance these against each other, eventually picking a side. I'm going to guess to progress down the political branch. Full support for Mao seems to give you some political power, daily command power, not that significant, if I'm honest. Whereas full support for the committee, the Bolsheviks, the 28.5 Bolsheviks, more factory output, more just purely based on that tooltip, I'm siding with the Bolsheviks every time, no matter how incredible Mao's hair is. But I'm sure there's more to it. This would be too straightforward otherwise. All right, so this is the historical political tree, or part of the historical political tree. Pretty hefty, so it's going to be cut up into a couple of sections. So let's see. We have the start of things where you're actually going to get a couple of bonuses and some focus to help you grow militarily and industrially before you have to fight Japan. And you're going to have to fight Japan. Development, westward expansion, eastward expansion. I'm guessing you're going to try to eat one of your neighbors or parts of the neighbor. And development and internal enemy looks like military bonuses. Okay. So border wars are back and they're going to have more moving parts to them. So the border war itself is not going to change, but are going to add raids that prepare the area for your border war. Say you're going to, I don't have a map in front of me, but you're going to do a border war for a certain area. You know that, but you're not entirely sure you're going to be able to take the enemy. What you could do now is prepare a raid, do that raid, and when you finish the raid, you get relatively, substantial attack bonuses to the enemy breakthrough and attack, and then you launch the border war. You get those bonuses, you have a higher chance of actually winning the border conflict. I just hope they fix the way they work now, because half the time your troops don't engage and the combat width fills in a weird way or never fills at all, or the enemy keeps cycling fresh troops in. Now, I have seen them state that once a division is kicked out of a border war, it can't, walk back in and continue the fight. So we'll see. Ooh, you can usurp control over Yan'an. If you do it before you're allied to the nationalist, there's going to be a border war. If you do it after you're allied to the nationalist, you can actually get the whole area. And they say maybe just waiting around for nothing might help you too, because of some extra content exclusive to the Northeast and Shaanxi army warlords directly to the south. So we haven't seen those yet, but maybe they build up their territory using their focus tree, and then you nab it all for free after? Maybe? Right, when you then have control over Yan'an, you have to either develop or become more aggressive to the enemy. Aggression is what it says on the tin. Attack bonus and breakthrough against all Chinese countries. And developing the Yan'an Soviet build slots moves your capital, get a level 1 railway. This is worthless to me. 35 days for 3 build slots, moving my capital and getting a level 1 railway. Unless that is a focus I need to do to progress down a path, or I have literally nothing else to do, this wastes 35 days of my time. What's this? With Burn the Paper Tiger, we can beat everyone else in China to creating a faction and invite the nationalists and become the faction leader. Then there's also rally the peasants and guide the central committee to unlock decisions to push the balance of powers towards Mao so that you can embrace the change in leadership. And have Mao solidifying his grip on the central committee. The leadership of Mao Zedong requires the power struggle to be a certain way in Mao's favor and is going to propel it even further in Mao's favor. Yeah, okay, so this is basically required. Meddling general So Mao has a lot of de facto power, but he's not officially party leader or in any great position of power. It's just his cult of personality and his charisma that allow him to gather power to him. And then there's the official people, the committee, who are, you know, slowly getting whittled down and pushed out of relevancy. All right, makes sense. Yeah. Now for the actual war, apparently they've read parts of their history. We're not going to do all that much. No, we're going to let the nationalists fight, kill, and die for the glory of China. And we're going to take a back seat, only plugging holes if we have to, holding the line if we have to, and we'll do some guerrilla warfare. Now, fun fact, they say this is a page out of Mao's book on guerrilla warfare. Mao did not write that book. That book was written by one of his generals, who he then purged and then passed off as his own. So, fun fact, he's, content thief as well. Anyway, I don't like the guy. So your militias are also going to get strengthened if you do that. It also gives you decisions for guerrilla warfare, giving you, not really giving you anything. It is just penalizing the Japanese for having control. Like this, once again, not impactful at all. The AI has zero problems dealing with resistance because resistance in its current implementation is utterly and completely irrelevant. A simple law change by the AI will completely nullify this. And you say, but they will have to dedicate more to maintaining law and order. Yeah. And you won't notice on the front line. This is completely irrelevant. And the way the game works right now, this does not matter. Anyway, then we can continue down and establish bases behind enemy lines where you can do sabotage operations on your own core states. Why? And you can empower the guerrillas to halve the cost for the guerrilla warfare decisions and improve their effects. Okay, let's see what that gives us. A resistance cell. Once again, not that interested in it. Launch sabotage campaign. Now that is better. The added division attrition is impactful enough if it's in an area where the AI is concentrating, so on a front line. The railway and infrastructure repair speed are a bit meh. Yes, it's nice when you manage to break their supply lines, but by and large, you're not going to be in a position to exploit that all that much. So they'll repair it eventually. Slowing divisions down is also nice though, so it could prevent reinforcements from reaching a critical position in time. So okay, if you empower it, there's maybe a little bit more to it. Let's see, then you go further down and you get change in leadership, propaganda efforts. Basically, you're going to start to really whittle away at the committee and push for Mao being the actual legitimate leader, not just de facto leader. Get the people's support and you can use your cult of personality, I guess. Anyway, with you rally the support in Chinese states gives you decisions that will allow you to infiltrate Chinese states that you're not at war with, whether they're allies or not. Okay, so infiltration of those states are going to give you bonuses. The extra division attack and breakthrough are pretty nice. That will definitely help you overrun the Chinese. Yeah. And it will flip to the Chinese Soviet Republic in the event of a war. Damn, that's pretty cool. That's good. That's good. All right, and they're gonna try to undo it. They're gonna do counter-infiltration. So think Spanish Civil War. We're just constantly gonna have to be ping-ponging. Somebody's gonna figure out the best way to do it, like they always do. But I feel that's gonna be like a tedious micro mini game with a whole bunch of other stuff also going on. So I don't know how much I like it anymore. We have another way of getting guns. So we know that we will have a shit industry for most of the game. Apparently there will now be raids allowing you to steal equipment from the people you're at war with. Raid weapon depots through raiding the weapon depots. Focus. It is a land raid you can launch on stage with a supply hub that you either have guerrilla cells or sabotage operations in. That is cool. On the other hand, it only gives me like this one. I don't know if this is like just a success or a critical success. It gives you 250 guns and 25 pieces of artillery. I hate to break it to you, Paradox, but those are worthless numbers considering the losses you've taken in the unit doing it. The unit undertaking the operation took 30% casualties, 30% damage. Assuming a unit has assuming the unit has 1,000 manpower in it, you've already lost so much equipment. Assuming you need 1,000 guns to staff a unit, you just lost 300 of them to acquire 250. The math isn't mathing, Paradox. And then finally, with the Yan'an rectification movement, will cement Mao as the supreme leader of the CCP, and he can worm his way to the top. You get Maoism, okay, Wang Xinwei gets yeeted, the meddling Secretary General gets yeeted, and Mao stands triumphant on a mountain of skulls. And you can also get the hopeless 100 Regiments Offensive, the only time in the Great Patriotic... we still have the 100 Regiments Offensives. Fun fact, this was the only time the communists committed to the field in force against the Japanese, and they got their asses handed to them. Anyway, prepare for the inevitable. It prepares you for the civil war against the nationalists if they still exist. That is more or less the historical path. And that leads us straight into one of the alt history branches for the communists. The 28.5 Bolsheviks, so called because of the 28, 29, depending on who you ask, Chinese intellectuals who studied in Moscow. So this is the Central Committee, I suppose. Zhang Wenchan and Wang Min and Bo Gu. Alright, they both had strong positions up to the Long March, and Bo Gu fumbled the bag when he fucked up the Long March. This is essentially going to be an alternate communist China. What if Mao did not seize power? Both Bo Gu and Wang Ming can return to lead the party should the faction gain enough influence, so we can then rebuild them from scratch. Okay, so you can take a focus to upgrade their leader traits. That's nice. So these guys are essentially the Bolsheviks, with Mao being, well, the Maoist. These are going to toe a different line than Mao, more urbanized and intellectual rather than the rural perspectives of Mao. Additionally, they will seek a closer cooperation with the Soviet Union, where the 28 Bolsheviks studied in the 20s and 30s. Makes sense. The Sino-Soviet split eventually happened over differences of ideology, among other things. And if you have a more staunchly Bolshevik leadership, that doesn't necessarily need to happen, and they have a much closer cooperation. That is a interesting what if. Embrace Stalinism. Well, okay then. Okay then, that's gonna push us further towards the Central Committee. Okay. And they have a few unique focuses for faction influence. So if we play nice with these guys, we have potential options to influence the Chinese United Front and steer it more towards what we want out of it, I guess. We haven't seen the dev diary for just what that means, but these guys have access to it, and I don't think Mao does. Oh, they immediately talk about it here. The influence the faction mechanic is a decision system where you can send somebody on diplomatic missions, so you gain more faction influence. And more faction influence, once again, not entirely sure what this is going to do, but I guess it will allow you to help shape the identity of the faction and maybe turn it into something more beneficial to you, the communists. All right, we'll still have infiltration and guerrilla mechanics, but they will be much weaker. It was very much Mao's wheelhouse. And, well, you can make them cheaper if you go down the focus tree enough. Or you can play both sides. Yes, if you prefer diplomatic gameplay over infiltration, this path might be for you. Okay, let's see what that leads to. So to unlock this alt history path, more on the right side, yeah, this focus here, we're gonna have to wait for somebody to arrive who's still on the Long March, and then you can form the unwilling diarchy between Guo Tao and Mao, sidelining the B-28 Bolsheviks in the balance of power. Okay, so this is like yet another alt history. First alt history is these guys, the 28.5 Bolsheviks. Basically, what if communism, but more Bolshevik and maybe less aggressive towards the nationalists, maybe finds different ways to make things work. And then you have the unwilling diarchy, where a second man of influence arrives and he challenges Mao in his own way. Yeah, they do look like they be arguing. Long story short, Mao, sly, infiltration, tricksy tricks. And the other guy, whom not is Zhang, is far more direct in his approach. He's going to focus on militias and military confrontation, which might not end up going so well if your army is shit. And then you will have to choose, does Mao ascend or does Zhang ascend? The bonuses do seem nice. I don't like the loss of stability, but oh well. All right, I'll be honest, I've completely lost track of where all of these focuses are going. Personally, I don't like the way this dev diary is laid out. It is too long-winded. There's too much information in it. It is far too much, and it's not visually clear just what it is. Because you have screenshots, cool, and then you have descriptions saying what focuses do what, but they don't show you where the focuses are. They don't give you a nice overview of the focus tree. They only have the low-res shit here. It is a little difficult to keep following along. Long story short, what we've seen so far, Mao path, historical, basically what we've already been doing in the base game, just more focus on border wars, more focus on infiltration to make your shit army go a little bit further. That's it. Then we have the Bolsheviks. They're gonna do basically the same thing, but instead of very hard into infiltration stuff, they're gonna be leaning more on the faction, trying to get the faction to do more things their way and try to come out that on top that way. And then we have this guy Zhang, basically Mao, but a different flavor of idiot, I guess. Whereas Mao is going to be more about infiltrating and having more options that way. This guy is more for the direct military approach. As you can see, it leads you down here where you have the option to, let's see, stab the nationalists in the back when they have their hands full with Japan while launching the preemptive strike. Now, usually that's not a terrible idea. If you can make that peace deal work, you can get a nice slice of China out of that. And you can bolster your production capabilities by getting some lend-lease from the Soviets. This is also why the communists ran the Long March all the way up north, because north is where your border is to the closest ally you have, namely Joseph, who is willing to help fund you. Then you can reach out to either the West or closer ties to the Soviet, both having their own separate bonuses. Okay. Having settled your internal power disputes and you've secured your position, either with a faction, you get some lend-lease, or you've stabbed the nationalists in the back, you can reach out to the West or get some closer ties to the Soviets. More bonuses to be had there. So pretty significant research bonuses. Some pretty nice potential bonuses to be had there, I'll be honest. Oh, you can get your emergency measures. They wouldn't be emergency measures if you couldn't extend them, but the cost of 10 stability is pretty steep. The branch is now almost done. 2 more focus. Every peasant a soldier. That's really good for your militia. Militia are shit, but if it's what you have, this does strengthen them quite a bit. And then the march to victory. That is a pretty significant bonus, yeah, that all the other Chinas. Now we're in the end game. All of the political branches lead down to one shared final branch. So we've had our 3 different flavors: historical with Mao, ahistorical with the Bolsheviks, and then ahistorical with either Mao or Zhang. All of them lead back down to the same subtree branch. And this is the end game where we focus on forming the People's Republic of China. So what flavor will we have here? Towards one China, allow autonomous regions, seek a peaceful reunion. So 3 different options. And once that is achieved, we have more goals. Taiwan, obviously, you're going to want that back. Fun fact, they still want that back. Reclaim Tibet, subjugate Korea. Move the capital to Beijing, yes. Okay. Oh, this also gives you a research slot, but it's a pretty late down in the focus tree. So by the time you get this research slot, it's not going to be as valuable anymore. All right. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then down here, the Chinese century, or we avenge the century of humiliation, or we have the Asian Democratic Union. Democratic? Ooh, we can reform the Republic? Okay, so you have the option of a third of like an additional non-historical outcome. So you form the People's Republic, work your way down there, adopt Sun Yat-sen's principles, like the granddaddy of the Kuomintang, I believe. Was that Sun Yat-sen? I think it was Sun Yat-sen. And instead of going with a one-party state, you go with reform the Republic here. And that will allow you, I believe, to form the Asian Democratic Union. Unless I'm entirely misreading this. What I am somewhat skeptical about is this sentence here. The player will be able to take focuses that unlock coring and integration efforts. That might mean China is not going to be your full core anymore. Because right now, it is just your core. You take land, it's yours, you have full use of it. If you're the nationalists or if you are any flavor of the communists. If that's changed, that might make the whole thing a lot more difficult. That might make the whole thing a lot more difficult. And some focus is provided at some post-PRC content, okay? And there you will be rebuilding and growing from a very delicate, okay. So in conclusion, the player's main focus will be to rebuild and grow from a very delicate starting position while handling the warlords and the nationalists with Japan just around the corner. And it does look like conflict with the nationalists is inevitable. So with that, we have reached the end of the line for this dev diary. It is a massive chonker. I recommend you go read it. Once again, I'll leave a link to it down below. If you're interested in the DLC, haven't picked it up yet, use my link down in the description. It gives you the game from Paradox directly. It's a Steam key. You can use it on Steam. The only difference is I get a 12% cut of the price. That's it. I can buy more Warhammer. I love me my little toys. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.